and we're back with another scene analysis from the Master. Just to jog your memory, this is that confrontation scene shortly after Lancaster Dodd, or the Master, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, has just hypnotized this woman into some kind of a vision in front of his followers. And they belong to his cult, which is referred to as the Cause.
Oh, that Scientology shit.
So this lady apparently sees herself as a man in armor in the vision. And Lancaster explains how this is her memory of her past life and some stuff about why this is an important part of the process of dehypnotization, as he calls it.
This is a process of dehypnotization, if you will.
Because man is asleep.
Man is asleep. This process wakes him from his slumber.
But then this amazing science bitch comes in and makes the scene by questioning Lancaster's outrageous claims.
Science bitch.
As you can imagine, him being challenged in front of his congregation doesn't go down well, and he gets a bit mad.
Perverted.
The scene has such a great progression and build up. It's almost musical in how it picks up pace and reaches this intense crescendo. It's particularly effective in terms of revealing character though, because we get a lot about Lancaster since we get to see him in a context that we haven't up until now. You'll notice that in the film, Lancaster always feels most comfortable when he's lecturing his followers. They already support him, so he can kind of freestyle rap some vague bullshit and they'll lap it up. To be fair, the writing is so good, so I wouldn't mind listening to some of the rambling as well. But we've already seen him in this context, in his element, a few times in the film at this point.
Good day, good day, good day, what a day.
You might notice that no one from within the group ever really challenges him. Even in some cases when he's directly asked something requiring a definitive yes or no answer,
is it possible for books to kill people?
He responds in a vague, loosely related way such that he can give an answer that isn't falsifiable.
Perhaps the operative question is the pen mightier than the sword?
And instead of receiving persistent, pointed follow-up questions, the answer is just kind of accepted. This is the only context in which someone like Lancaster, let's just say a cult leader, can operate without issue. You're not openly challenged by your followers, you avoid giving falsifiable answers, and your followers don't persist past those vague answers. So therefore your word is gospel, possibly literally, and you can make up any bullshit about someone accessing their past life as a literal knight in shining armor without question.
And now it begins.
But in this scene, all of these conditions are violated. Lancaster and his ideas receive unwavering resistance, and it's really interesting to see how he reacts when he's challenged and uncomfortable. You get to see him flustered and irritated and trying to justify his statements and the cause. He rushes into making sweeping statements that would work in the context of his followers, but this guy,
John Moore,
Mr. Moore,
sees right through them. He easily recognizes that there's no concrete evidence supporting anything he's claiming. Now what's interesting is that in the discussion, Lancaster doesn't really have to convince John. He just has to convince his followers that he's in the right and that John is merely challenging the cause because he's afraid and unwilling to participate in open discussion. You see, you don't have to actually argue on the basis of your ideas if you frame things in the right way.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Lancaster frames John as being frightened.
Is there something frightening to you about the cause's travels into the past?
Or scared of the approach that the cause takes to try and weaken his position.
What scares you so much about traveling into the past, sir?
More importantly, he deflects his own resistance to an open discussion onto John. Lancaster becomes defensive when his statements aren't blindly accepted, and he becomes increasingly irritated and finally explodes. And yet his conclusion is that it's John who's being unreasonable and unwilling to participate in an open discussion. He also rephrases John's mention of the discussion as a grilling.
No, this isn't a discussion, it's a grilling.
By the way, if you think this is an outrageous reaction, it's tame compared to what it says in the script. In the script, it goes completely off the rails, and I think this version that ended up in the edit is actually way better. Lancaster's followers, who might not actually be paying attention to the logic of the argument they're having, can instead focus on Lancaster's vague but inspirational statements of the lofty goals of the cause,
capturing the mind's fatal flaws and correcting it back to its inherent state of perfect.
And they can also perceive how he frames John to make him seem weaker. Lancaster makes it seem like he wants to save the world, and this man is simply trying to shoot that down because he's afraid of how they want to achieve this. But Lancaster really fucks up when he blows the fuse at the end. As I mentioned in the last video, Lancaster's character seems to understand himself as a civilized intellectual. This is an important part of his identity and how he presents himself, which makes it really interesting to see this mask slowly deteriorate until he finally slips into everyone's favorite line from this scene.
If you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask pig fuck?
But you see now, even if you weren't following the logic of the argument, you see that Lancaster has become defensive and feels vulnerable and attacked. You can tell the group didn't miss it either from the reaction of this lady. You'll notice Lancaster also immediately regrets it. It's like you can see this moment where he realizes his mask just fell off in front of the whole congregation. His choice of words and his reaction in this outburst also put the quality of Lancaster's character into question, because it falls far from the civilized intellectual he presents himself as. And what does he do in this situation? He jumps back in quickly to sweep it under the rug with some more lofty statements. And then a character-fitting toss of some soggy fruit from Freddy, and we've moved right along, unaffected. In fact, Peggy is even more fired up after this. So being challenged and not being able to stand up to reasonable, although pointed questioning, not only didn't shake them, it made them more steadfast in their beliefs. I think this is such an interesting and alarming representation of how resistant, dangerous ideologies can be to basic reason and open debate. I guess that's why cults often isolate themselves from everyone.
I just have some questions.
One of my favorite lines is when Lancaster says,
But without it, we'd be positives and no negatives. Therefore, zero charge.
because in that case, there would be a positive charge. There would only be no charge if a positive and a negative charge eliminated one another. I would imagine back then, at least in the scientific community, that this was reasonably well established. It's just another subtle, revealing way in which the script shows you that Lancaster and the cause are so far removed from science, even though he's constantly trying to present himself as this scientifically minded intellectual. Again, such interesting elements and ideas in here that you can dive into and chew on. There's so much you can take from this scene for your own films. I mean, just look at all the different subtle and obvious ways in which character is revealed in this scene that are also really compelling. It's even a great example for when you might be stuck in a script. Take your character and put them in a situation where you know they'll be uncomfortable or have to act in a way that we haven't seen yet. Take your composed, all-knowing, charismatic leader and have them be prodded and put under pressure. How does he react? How does she slip up? Being able to add these layers comes from knowing your story, the world, the period, the culture, the characters, the topics they're discussing. The more of these levels you can deeply grasp, the more you can pull them into the story when needed. So definitely give this scene another watch and see what you can take from it. Besides, the fantastic progression of intensity also makes it a really enjoyable rewatch. It's so good. Also, while you're at it, one of the scenes for this video actually came from the deleted scenes for the film, which I only recently discovered, and I'd highly recommend them. Annapurna actually released this cut of the deleted scenes on YouTube, and it gives so much context and includes some really amazing scenes. I'll throw a link in the comments and hopefully it stays up. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.
That man in the armor, was that me?
Yes, that was your spirit.